Robert Rodriguez isn't just a filmmaker, he's a fan with taste, and trust me, his favorite movies aren't what you'd expect. We're counting down 10 cult films Rodriguez himself wants you to see, from Carpenter classics to Raimi's gory brilliance. If you think you know cult cinema, wait till you see this list. Rolling Thunder is brutal, gritty, and exactly the kind of revenge film that leaves an impact. The story follows a Vietnam prisoner of war, fresh home, and dealing with the worst kind of homecoming, losing his family and his hand in a violent robbery. Naturally, he goes after the ones responsible. Rodriguez and Tarantino both praised this film, with Rodriguez admitting, "You see its influence in just about every one of my movies." Tarantino even named his distribution company Rolling Thunder Pictures after the movie. John Carpenter is one of those directors whose work sticks with you, and Escape from New York hit Rodriguez right where it counts. He once said it opened up my eyes to the kinds of movies I wanted to do. Carpenter wrote this as a response to the Watergate scandal, but back in the 70s, studios thought it was too dark and violent. After the success of Halloween, though, Carpenter got the green light, and the rest is cult movie history. Rodriguez credits The Thing with teaching him how flexible a story can be. He's all about getting the most out of his actors, a lesson he learned from Kurt Russell's portrayal of MacReady. Carpenter himself calls The Thing his personal favorite. The first time the movie aired on US network television, it featured a completely different cut, adding early scenes to introduce the characters. Carpenter hated this version and disowned it, but you can catch it on the 2016 Scream Factory Blu-ray release. If you love From Dusk Till Dawn, you can thank Evil Dead 2 for some serious inspiration. Sam Raimi's sequel is a wild ride, packed with over-the-top gore and that unmistakable sense of humor. Stephen King was such a fan of the first Evil Dead that he convinced producer Dino De Laurentiis to fund the sequel over dinner. Yes, that's right, King made this movie happen. Raimi has returned the favor by making cameos in King adaptations like The Stand and The Shining miniseries. An American Werewolf in London is the perfect blend of comedy and horror, something that really stuck with Rodriguez. John Landis, the director, calls it his personal favorite. To get the film down to an R rating, though, Landis had to make some cuts, like removing a scene where the werewolf tears apart 3 homeless men after test audiences freaked out. Interestingly, when Landis reviewed the film years later for a DVD transfer, even he was surprised by how gory it was. Eric Red's The Hitcher and Near Dark were huge influences on Rodriguez's work, especially on films like The Faculty and Planet Terror. Near Dark was almost a Western, but since that genre wasn't exactly booming in the 80s, they mixed it with horror and nailed it. The Hitcher was a bit more polarizing. Christopher Nolan calls it one of his favorites, but Roger Ebert famously gave it 0 stars, ripping it apart for its violence. The gloriously campy Flash Gordon might not be perfect, but Rodriguez loves it for exactly what it is, a cheesy cult classic. George Lucas, a huge fan of the original Flash Gordon serials, actually wanted to make his own version, but when those rights were tied up, he made Star Wars instead. Imagine what Flash Gordon might have looked like through Lucas's lens, or maybe don't. Rodriguez has always been a fan of George Miller's Mad Max films, but his first viewing of Mad Max came with a bit of a shock. It was dubbed with American accents. For Rodriguez, in his own words, it was a real lesson in dubbing and how important sound is, because they seemed like the worst actors in the world due to the poor voice acting. Only when Rodriguez later watched it with the original Australian accents did he realize how amazing the performances were. These gritty, dust-covered thrillers have had a clear influence on Rodriguez's style, especially on Machete.